Good morning, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. Ask for any conflict of interest at the proper time. Need approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Motion. Before we get started, just to remind everybody, we are looking at two applications today, and the meeting is about the application and nothing else. Keep civil matters out of the equation. Notice of public hearing for application A-0125, minor variance, Flew the Coop Limited. Location of the property is 8673 Egremont Road to allow for the construction of a livestock barn and manure storage closer to the front of the property. The proposed livestock barn and manure storage necessitates variances related to the regulations associated with minimum distance separation required between non-compatible uses, but more specifically, the proposed livestock barn and manure storage would result in an MDS of 166.2 meters to a residence on the property to the west of the subject lands and an MDS of 240.4 meters to a residence on the property of the east of the subject land, where an MDS of 279 meters is required as calculated using AgriSuite and OMAFR tool. Take notice that the application under the above file will be heard by the Committee of Adjustment on March 4th at 9 a.m. Any person may attend the public hearing and or make written or oral representation either in support or opposition to the proposed minor variance. The meeting will take place in person at the Township Warwick Municipal Office. The meeting is also live streamed on the YouTube channel. I'll now ask the Secretary to read the dates and places of notice.
Notices were sent by regular mail and posted on the property on February 5th, 2025.
I'll also ask the Secretary to read any letters, submissions supporting or opposing the application.
There were no submissions received for this application.
Thank you, Heather. I will now ask Johan to explain the planner's report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, respected committee members, applicants, and the viewing public. Just wait for the application, the presentation. All right, next slide, please. So the site is located at 8673 Egremont Road. It's the property that's highlighted in blue. It's zoned agricultural, so A1. On the site, there is a residence. The surrounding properties are zoned agricultural A1 as well. The uses on the surrounding properties are agricultural operations, livestock operations, and rural residences. As you can see on the property, there's a drain or a water course running through the property with a buffer zone around the water course designated EPH. So EPH is environmental protection hazard. So it's basically a buffer for potential flooding. It was recommended by planning staff that the proposed livestock barn and the manure storage be located south of this water course and the EPH zone so that it clears MDS. This didn't work for the applicants. They wanted it on the northern side of the drain, closer to the road. And hence, that's why they've applied for this minor variance application. Next slide, please. So this is a photo of the subject lands from the road. As mentioned before, there's a residence on the property. You can see that behind the trees to the left of the image, and then next to the house, there's a tree line. The proposed location of the barn is behind the tree line. So next slide, please. So this is behind a bit of ways behind the tree line. This is the proposed location of the barn. It's really hard to see the site because of all the snow. Next slide, please. So this is the nearest sensitive use on a separate property to the subject lands. So this is the property directly west of the subject lands. It is 8643 Egremont Road. And this is where the variance is the largest. What's required by MDS is a separation of 279 meters. This house is approximately 165.3 meters from the proposed location of the barn. Next slide, please. So here we can see the minor variance diagram and what is proposed. So in dark purple, you can see the proposed barn and manure storage on the site. The purple bubble that you see around the barn is the 279-meter minimum distance separation that's required. And you can see D2 and D3 on the properties to the west and to the east. These are residences on properties that are not the subject lands itself. Because of the proposed location, what's being proposed, the separation is 245.7 meters to the property, to the house to the east, and 165.3 meters to the house to the west. So for a minor variance to be considered by the Committee of Adjustment, the variance must meet all 4 tests of a minor variance as indicated in the Planning Act and the Warwick Official Plan. So the number 1 test is the variance minor? So it's the opinion of planning staff that it is not, for a couple of reasons. For one, OMAFRA, so the ministry doesn't want us doing minor variances at all for minimum distance separation because it leads to significant land use conflicts. And they only want us doing it for the most justified cases. In this case, the criteria is not met. It's not minor from a distance perspective. So what's required is 279 meters. What's being proposed is 165.3 meters. That's approximately a 40% variance, so 114 meters. For MDS, this is quite significant. It's not 5 meters, it's not 10 meters, it's 114 meters. It's quite significant. Also, to put this in perspective, we did a calculation of what would actually fit there in the proposed location. So we did an MDS calculation, and what would actually fit there is a barn of 3,500 birds. So that would meet that 165-meter distance. But what's being proposed is 20,000 birds. It's a barn of 20,000 birds. So that's approximately a 500% increase, which is pretty significant. It isn't minor. Moving on, does it meet the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw? It doesn't. So the reason that we have these MDS calculations is it's to reduce land use conflicts. So what you see, that purple bubble there, is it's a distance that's generated and that distance is the area of highest impact for odor. So any sensitive uses in the surrounding areas, so any houses, their quality of life is going to be significantly affected by the proposed barn. Ideally, to meet MDS, any surrounding residential should be outside of that bubble, right? So, and also the reason for MDS is to protect all stakeholders involved. So it's to protect surrounding residential, their quality of life, so that there isn't a large impact on odor. It's to protect the municipality and the farmers themselves. So if they go through the proper approvals, the farmer goes through the proper approvals, and surrounding residents, they do complain because of smell, the township or the farmer can point to saying that I went through the proper approvals, the MDS was all good. So basically you don't have a basis to actually complain. So it doesn't meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw either. Is the variance appropriate for the property? As shown in the site location image, the property goes for quite a bit. In the location that it's proposed, it's not appropriate because it doesn't meet MDS at all. It would be appropriate if the barn is made, the capacity is made smaller, if it meets just 3,500 birds or less, or if the barn is moved south of the drain or the water course, then it would be appropriate. But this location isn't appropriate. There's 2 other things I would want to mention. So if this was actually to go through, it would be very difficult for those 2 residences, if they wanted to tear down their houses and rebuild the houses, if they wanted to move the footprint, they would need to do an MDS1 calculation. MDS1 calculations are more restrictive, and they would fail those calculations with the location of this barn. So that restricts what they can do with their properties. The other thing I would like to mention is, so usually in MDS, farmers put one barn, later on they expand their operation. They wouldn't be able to expand from the get-go, right? With this. So as such, it fails the fourth test of a minor variance. Moving to the next slide. So it also doesn't meet the intent of the Planning Act, the PPS, the County OP, and as mentioned, the Warwick Official Plan and the zoning bylaw as well. It doesn't meet the four tests of the minor variance as described. Next slide, please. And so it's the recommendation of planning staff that committee adjustment refuse this minor variance. And I conclude my presentation and I open myself to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Johan. Pete, did you want to speak to this or Colin online? Colin, did you want to speak? You're muted, Colin, if you are trying to speak. Did you want to make any comments, Pete? No. Okay.
Know everything that's we're asking for.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
The only reason we kind of.
Sorry, John, we do have a comment here.
go ahead, Jen.
We're just driving, so it might be a little glitchy. Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just gonna pass it to Colin here.
The only comment I would say, just for you guys to be aware of, this is the only like property that we can build off site from the original farm that Flew the Coop actually owns to keep everything within the business. Just that's my point.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Not at this time.
Okay. Is anyone in attendance have any questions or comments? If so, state your name and address prior to speaking. Seeing none, I'll ask the committee members if they have any questions or comments. Wayne?
Yeah, Johan, you showed your purple circle. Now, it's not in compliance to the east or west. What about the north? It doesn't show the top of the circle.
Thank you, Councillor. It's in compliance to the north, just the east and the west.
Okay, thank you.
The other committee members?
Just a question on if you move it south. Now, I didn't quite catch why you didn't want to move it south besides the fact that there's burglaries. Any other reasons? We could avoid all this.
Pete, can you come up to the mic, please? Just press the button there.
Our costs will go up well over $100,000 by the time you bring your water back there, your hydro back there. We're also crossing a creek, so we have to put in a really good laneway. And there's a big cost of that. The big trucks have to get in there to deliver the chickens, to take them out, and to get the eggs too. So there's a great big extra cost to it.
And the other issue is the closer you get to the 402, it becomes a bigger disease issue because a lot of livestock travels down that 402. So the closer that we are to it, the bigger the risk we take.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just had a comment. I certainly understand exactly where you guys are coming from, but when you think about the two houses and like $100,000 extra to build the barn where it's in compliance, and then how you could negatively affect those two houses over the next 50 years, it makes it hard to justify from that point of view, Pete.
So both of those houses have barns on them. They both have livestock there. So does it affect anything different? If you deny us and they want to build a new barn there, they're gonna be in the same boat. So,
Johan?
Through the chair, I just want to remind committee, and everyone here that MDS is cumulative. Every time there's a new barn, it adds to the amount of order in the area, right? And everything is calculated. That all factors into calculations, and MDS is cumulative, adds more and more. The more barns you have in the area, the more order potential.
Wayne?
If I remember from the past, we have denied these minor variances in the past with barns. Can we kind of set a precedence?
Dave, anything? Okay. As there's no further questions, the committee hereby closes this portion of the meeting. Notice of the decision will be mailed out within 10 days from the date of committee's decision. The appeal period is 20 days after the date of the decision is mailed. After that date, if there are no appeals filed, then the application becomes final and the property owner will be sent a notice. Thanks everyone for attending, and I'll ask the committee for a decision. John?
Make a motion that we deny A01-25 from Flew the Coop.
Seconder?
I'll second it. Okay, please.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Motion carried. That adjourns this meeting. We'll now move to the next file, A-02-25. Application for minor variance. Gazelle Cosma. Location 470 Rachel Street, to permit the property to be surfaced with concrete with only 10% of the area dedicated to landscaped open space in order to bring the property into compliance with Warwick zoning bylaw. This request necessitates variances from the minimum landscaped open space requirements outlined in Table A of Warwick zoning bylaw 121 of 2012. But more specifically, the request would result in a landscaped open space of 10%, whereas a minimum of 40% is required in residential R1 zone as outlined in Table A of Warwick's zoning bylaw 121 of 2012. Take notice that an application under the above file number will be heard by the Committee of Adjustment on March 4th at 9 a.m. Any person may attend in the public hearing and or make written or oral representation either in support or in opposition of the proposed minor variance. The meeting will take place in person at the Township of Warwick Municipal Office. The meeting was also live streamed on YouTube channel. I'll now ask the secretary to read the dates and places of notice of public meeting.
Notices were sent by regular mail on February 14th, 2025, and posted on the property on February 18th, 2025.
I'll ask the secretary if there's any letters submitted supporting or opposing the application.
There was a letter received from one neighbor who opposes the application, and the entire letter is included on the agenda.
Thank you. I'll now ask Johan to read his planner's report.
To the chair, thank you. All right. Next slide, please. Oh. All right, the subject lands is located at 470 Rachel Street. That's the property that's highlighted in blue. The property is zoned R1 residential. The surrounding properties on the street is zoned R1 residential as well. Backing the property, you have properties zoned M1 and M1-3, so that's both industrial zonings. Further to the east, you have properties zoned industrial and residential. And further to the west, you have residential and you have a property zoned A2 agricultural. Next slide, please. So this is the photo of what's existing right now. So a bit of background context on this. So the applicant had been going through a building permit. So the building permit was approved. They had a lot grading plan that was approved as well. The lot grading plan did not actually show this much hardscaping. How the township and county found out was through neighbor complaints. Township and county staff verified that the complaints were founded, so we sent out an enforcement letter. And within the enforcement letter, there was a couple of options given. The preferred option was that the site be altered to remove a lot of the concrete so that it meets the 40% landscaped open space zoning requirement. The other option that was given is that the applicant could apply for a minor variance, but was warned that the applicant would need to argue that it is actually minor, it needs to be sufficiently justified, and that it is subject to a public process. The applicant has moved forward with a minor variance. That's why we're here today. As can be seen from the site, you have a residence, a garage towards the back of the residence. There's a shed towards the back of the property, and a significant portion, so approximately 90% is hardscaped with concrete. There's a portion around the property. You'll see that in the minor variance diagram when we get to it, but there's a portion around the property, skirting the property, that is soil. And then after that setback, he's put the fence, and everything within the fence is hardscaping or structures. Next slide, please. So this is the minor variance diagram. So what's shown in purple is the existing, the house and the garage. So in green, you can see the skirting around the property. Certain areas that is 1 foot, and certain areas that's 4 feet. The applicant has calculated this to be 10% of the property. Planning staff, we calculated this to be 13%, but it could actually be closer to 10% because we don't know how much of the fence width is actually eating into that landscaped open space. So that's anywhere between, if you go with 13%, that's a 67.5% variance, up to a 75% variance if it's 10% of the required 40%. So, 1 second. So the application review. So for a minor variance to be considered by the Committee of Adjustment, the variance must meet all 4 tests of a minor variance as indicated in the Planning Act and Warwick official plan. So the first, is it minor? As mentioned before, what's being requested is either a 67.5% variance, but up to a 75% variance. What's being requested by the proponent is a 75% variance. That's not minor. It's pretty significant. Does it meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw? Planning staff believes it doesn't for a couple of reasons. Because we want a certain portion of landscaped open space to deal with the surface runoff. With this much hardscaping, there's high potential that surface runoff runs to the surrounding properties and to the public right away. In a meeting I had with the proponent earlier, I had requested that he submit an analysis from an engineer that showed that the stormwater management works, but that was not submitted with the application, so we don't really know if it works. It's highly unlikely that it will work. The other issues are we need a certain amount of open space so that there's rainwater percolates into the soil for environmental concerns, to feed the water table, and to reduce strain on the township's infrastructure, the amount of stormwater that's actually going to public infrastructure. The last reason is does it meet the character of the neighborhood? And it doesn't. So it's quite different from the aesthetics of the neighborhood. The surrounding properties all meet this 40% landscaped open space a requirement, but this property doesn't. So it doesn't meet the character of the neighborhood as well. Also, there's very little green space on the site as well. So for these reasons, it's not appropriate for the property as well. It doesn't meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. Moving on. So it also doesn't meet the intent of the Planning Act, the PPS, the county official plan, and the Warwick official plan and the zoning bylaw. As mentioned before, it doesn't meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. Next slide, please. It's the recommendation of planning staff that the community adjustment refuse this minor variance application. There's one more thing I want to add. So County Building Services had comments and they shared significant concerns with the application. They for them to review properly, they require a new log grading certificate that actually shows the extent of the hardscaping that's being done. They require there's potential, they would require third-party review as well before any approvals are to be considered. Additionally, the applicant may be required to submit stormwater calculations to demonstrate that the proposal meets the necessary drainage requirements. So if committee is considering approval, I would recommend that we defer the meeting so that this information is there, so that they have time to analyze that information. But I do want to stress the planning recommendation is highly unlikely to change. It still doesn't meet the 4 Tesla minor variance, and it's still not appropriate for the property. With that, I end my presentation and I open myself to any questions you may have.
Thanks, Johan. I'll now ask Rizal for any comments. Please push the button if you have any comments you want to make.
Sure. I just know that I'm new in this town. I do work at the dump, right? And this is my first house that I built. Did not know about all this laws that you guys have in this town. I guess my real estate guy told me that there's all kinds of things going on in this town, so I'm a little disappointed. I'm trying to be a good citizen, build a beautiful house in this town, pay taxes. I'm 65 years old. And I'm trying to live like the rest of my life in the town. And be picked like this for a piece of concrete that some people cannot afford to build, and I can. All right? The water is going to go somewhere in the ground or off the ground, or my neighbors front and back of my house. They never complain about my house, about my water, where it's going, or snow. Okay? If I have a problem, the only problem I have with across the street, that she's a nutcase. All right? And that's the only thing that's not supposed to happen. Now, looks like you guys are gonna make a good decision, whatever you can do, but there's nowhere to put the snow. I can't put the snow in the street, can I? No. So I have to have a place to put, I have to run my machine, because I cannot push the snow with my hands, because I'm 65 and I have a condition on my back. All right? And I have to put it somewhere. The lot is very small for the house. I made a mistake. I built too big of a house. I'm not supposed to build that big. And right now, you guys decide what you want to decide, and we're gonna go from there, but it's nothing I can do. And I just ask you to consider this, as a good citizen that moved in this town, let's try only best for the town. All right? Thank you very much. I hope you guys make the right decision.
Thank you. Does anyone in attendance have any questions or comments? Please move to the microphone, state your name and address, and keep your comments and questions about the application. Anybody have anything to say? Questions? Go ahead.
My name is Kelly Schroyers. I reside at 382 West Street and also in the house next door at 394 West Street, which is 4 houses from 470 Rachel. My concerns, I'm afraid, will come back to water. We do understand that, and I'm glad that Johan was discussing the concrete and surfaces and runoff. And not to bring up old sore wounds, but we do have a problem on West Street and Mill Street with water going up to our knees on the last two big storms we had. So water does move north along West Street and comes down towards that CN yard where there's a large drain. And again, we did have our challenges with the rain, but we had flooding in both houses, in the garage, which caused heartache and substantial cost to us. So we know that everybody's trying to remedy that, but going forward with building a large concrete surface probably does not help the cause. Let's see what else I've got here. Aesthetics, I agree again with Johan. I don't think it, the home and the surrounding cement gives it more of a commercial and a compound type look with the fencing. Fence posts are installed around the perimeter, and it does not look like a single family home. It tends to look a little bit more commercial in my point of view. In the past, the current owner has verbalized to myself and it was in the food land in town, and that he was building a house for his workers to stay and to put his equipment in. And that was verbal. It was not documented. It was a conversation that was or something the gentleman had told me. So when I saw the cement go in and saw that there was trailers and some people that were migrating along from north from Nauvoo to the property and staying in the trailer, not necessarily working on the construction, I thought that the conversation we had was correct, that there were going to be workers staying there. On another note, I have many clients, friends, and neighbors that have gone through the process of building, renovating, and had to comply with rules and bylaws set out by our township. This can be long and costly and sometimes a challenging process for everyone, including our subject here, but the rules apply to all. I am a large believer in minor variances, that sometimes there are situations where there should be some minor variances to accommodate the people doing the work or building. But I find this to be a major variance and changes the whole scope of our little hamlet where we live. And I believe if the council were to approve this variance, they would be setting precedents for future homeowners to do what they wanted to do with the coverage of our natural space. I'm out of pages.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Johan?
Through the chair, thank you. I just want to add on further regarding occupancy. So we had further comments from building services regarding that. So building services have also indicated that a building permit for a single family dwelling was previously issued, as mentioned before, as the proposal at the time met all applicable laws and regulations. However, occupancy will be withheld until zoning compliance is achieved. Also, and they further state that if the variance request is not approved, the county on behalf of the township will issue compliance orders to address the unauthorized development and enforce zoning conformity.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll ask the committee if they have any questions or comments.
I guess I just have one, Chairman John, and that's to Johan. So I think I understand this, but if we were to refuse this, would the applicant have to remove the concrete, obviously, right?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, they'll have to comply with zoning. So they'll have to remove it.
Wayne?
And the other thing, I looked at your chart with the percentages of lawn space and et cetera. So if he removed the concrete from the front that you've got marked on their lawn and the back is lawn, he would be in compliance. He could still keep his wide driveway.
Excuse me. I apologize. We actually didn't calculate how much those paved, what's shown on the images as paved lawns. We actually didn't calculate how much that would be. We would have to get back to you on that.
Any other questions? Wayne?
and what is the minimum requirement? Was it 40%?
Yes, Council, that's correct. It's 40%.
No other questions? As there's no further questions, the committee hereby closes this portion of the meeting. Notice of the decision will be mailed out within 10 days from the date of the committee's decision. The appeal period is 20 days after the date the decision is mailed. After that date, if there are no appeals filed, then the application becomes final and the property owner will be sent a notice. Thanks everyone for attending. I'll now ask the committee for a decision. Wayne?
I make a motion that we refuse this application. It's nowhere close to compliance.
Seconder?
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carried. Call the adjournment for the meeting. Thank you everyone for coming.